Thank you so much. Muchas gracias to Isaiah for having us. My name is Jiayi, and as it was introduced, I'm accompanied by graduate students Pachia, Vang, and Ofelia Veloci. I'm an associate professor of design at University of California, Davis. I'm also the chair of our Design MFA program and had the pleasure of providing intellectual leadership for our program at this pivotal moment in world history, defined by upheaval and uncertainty around the globe. The social and the geopolitical circumstances of the moment has put a mirror to what we think we know about the age-old discipline of design and what we came to realize as the omnipresent nature of colonial history and the contribution design made to affirm power, wealth, and oppression by design. Furthermore, much of it was created without considerations to the ecological, economic, and social sustainability of a design. It is under this level of examination that we ask, what might be the new outlook for design? How should we make designs today? What context should a design consider? This set of questions then lead us to the possibility of shifting design into a new potential paradigm. Should there be a new process as we develop a design, and what does that process look like? What is research-based design is a collective inquiry through a graduate seminar into such set of questions. In his Tools for Ideas, Introduction to Architectural Design, 2021 expanded and updated edition, Christian Genschert discusses research-based design as, quote, the tools provided by the science, or rather the knowledge, concepts, theories, methods, and the instruments, as well as the information they generate, are all based on the principles of transparency and reproducibility, and thus, in the broadest sense, on empiricism and rationality. He further asserts that the ecological, economic, and social sustainability of a design cannot be measured or assessed without scientific knowledge and methods. Today, research-based design employs diverse methods from the cultural and natural sciences, as well as practical and artistic research to develop a methodological basis supporting argumentation, a narrative, inspiration, or guiding idea for a design approach or process. And that it too is a circular process that begins with the definition of a task research question. Once sufficient information has been collected or observations made to provide a preliminary answer, an initial hypothesis is formulated. On the basis of this, experimentations are then conducted to verify the assumptions made. The resulting data is then systematically recorded, analyzed, interpreted in order to draw conclusions about the validity of the experiment and the correctness or incorrectness of the hypothesis. Then it is interesting to think about if design and research the same thing. A detailed investigation by Linda Grote and David Wong concluded that, quote, design and research are neither polar opposites nor equivalent domains of activity. Instead, subtle nuances and complementarities exist between the two. At their respective poles, yes, research tends to be more conceptually systematic, whereas design activities make episodic use of research. And designers, at least those working in university environments, should endeavor to make the results of their research available to the public in the same transparent and comprehensive way that is self-evident in scientific disciplines. They should disclose the data and assumptions on which a design is based, cite all references used, explain their chosen approach in a reproducible manner, justify all essential decisions, and critically reflect on what has been achieved, ideally with a view to distilling this into transferable knowledge, can be equipped to explore a structure of their own to carry out design practice and offer ways of understanding, giving, and receiving critical feedback on practical-based projects. As a class, we come together to make collective contributions to answer this question of what is research-based design through case study presentations. Students conduct careful research on an artistic or on an artist or designer's creative work that helps address the question of what is research-based design. The students then take turns to make presentations to each other and write a short paper on the subject. Each case study covers the following questions that you see on the slide here. For each case study, the students aim to dissect, unpack, and pinpoint specific research elements that contribute to the collective definition of the framework of research-based design practice. We discuss creative solutions based on aesthetics and craft and looked at prototypes that leverage scientific methods, concepts, and findings. We talk about design's reliance on iterations as design solution and user-based or participatory design approaches. We understand that we access a wide range of disciplines for design work, and we not only utilize existing knowledge, but also generate, analyze, and evaluate data. We are ultimately interested in the possibility of generating new knowledge through design practice. And we do so by examining through an expanded lens and definition of this collective inquiry. So today we present two short versions of such analyses.
The Visible Invisibles is a set of 3 sculptural chroma key dresses created by the artist Stephanie Siyuko for the Disrupting Craft 2018 Renwick Invitational with the Smithsonian American Art Museum's Renwick Gallery in Washington, D.C., adjacent to the White House. Made of green chroma key fabrics and set against a gray and white checkered transparency backdrop, these 3 dresses represent 3 moments in American history that have been fabricated, manipulated, and constructed in the same way that videos and photographs are, through visible but invisible chroma key screens and transparency layers. An associate professor of sculpture at the University of California in Berkeley, Stephanie Siyuko was born in the Philippines and immigrated to the US at a young age. Drawing from her lived experiences and work with sculpture, textiles, and photography, The Visible Invisibles specifically explores the questions of how American history is constantly being written and rewritten, looking at what the status of being American is today by re-examining historical American iconography to challenge traditional narratives. Taking to research findings on Civil War reenactments in the South, it became apparent that there are historical realities in America yet to be reckoned with as imaginations of a victorious South continue despite the inhumane economies of slavery it would have upheld. Intrigued by the DIY costumes worn in these enactments, like the performances themselves, these costumes were but condensed versions of what the realities actually were. Using these commercialized patterns as a template for the chroma key dresses, 3 specific moments in American history were created. This included 1, the Plymouth Pilgrim, situated to the far left, referencing the mythology of the country's founding by the noble Plymouth Pilgrim at the expense of the native peoples and their sovereignty. 2, the Colonial Revolution, situated to the far right, representing the American Revolution of 1776 and its hypocrisies in establishing a democratic state that granted citizenship to only free white men. And 3, the Antebellum South, situated in the center, calling attention to the idyllic romanticism of the Confederacy and a memorialized South which supported a cruel economy based on slavery and white supremacy. Additional material research was conducted, such as the sourcing of chroma key green scarves, ribbons, laces, and yarns to produce bows, cockades, bonnets, and collars, which relied on 19th century skilled handiwork that Siyuko herself hand-fabricated in an effort to reclaim and remake the history of America. In conclusion, the installation showcases a strong example of what research-based design practice can include. starting with the specific research questions of how is American history constantly being rewritten and written, and what is the status of being American. Different historical phenomenons were explored to be synthesized through critical theory and independent design methodologies that offer a creative design solution to pressing social issues through the aesthetics of craft. It is designed to make viewers reevaluate, rethink, and reformulate their understanding of society and its realities. Grounded in cultural and historical research and guided by a supporting argument and narrative, it utilizes existing knowledge to generate data in a compelling way that creates new knowledge for multidisciplinary design practices.
Well, I will wrap up. My case study was based in Silk Pavilion, made in 2013. The main lead was Neri Oxman, and they started the research with the question, how can humankind and members of other species, such as silkworms, collaborate in the construction of objects, products, and buildings? They found that the main problem is how to extract silk without boiling the cocoons. So the silk is a film, fine thread which every silkworm spins its cocoons. The silkworm pupates in its cocoons and emerge 20 days later as a moth. The fibers are then wound on a reel into the thread, which contains approximately 48 silk filaments. And a silkworm can produce up to 15 meters of filaments in a minute, but the average number of cocoons boiled per single t-shirt is 1,000, so it's a lot. For making this project, in the picture you can see 26 polygon panels weaved with silk threads by a CNC machine. The project was possible by the creation of a dome as a supportive structure attached all the polygons. Computational tryouts define the best way to weave the silk onto panels. That way, according to the sun position or illumination, certain panels will be denser or less denser. By studying how the silkworm spinning behavior is informed by spatial and environmental conditions, it was able to guide the silkworm movement to spin two-dimensional surfaces rather than three-dimensional dimensions like the cocoons. This process allowed the silkworm to live and metamorphose in relative peace. This interesting project, the Silk Pavilion, took form as a 3 meters wide dome constructed over only 3 weeks. Just to wrap up.
Thank you, Pachia, Ofelia. And thank you so much. We did bring the collection of 13 papers of case studies to Isaiah. They're all posted in the poster session. I hope you find it interesting enough to pay a visit, or you can scan the QR code to get the whole PDF. Thank you so much.